I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark, the Department of Justice, and quite possibly the President of the United States himself. Somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it.
Stephen A. Smith didn't just speak. He detonated a media bombshell that sent shockwaves across both sports and political landscapes. With his voice trembling with urgency, he called for something no sports commentator usually dares to demand: a full-blown federal investigation into the WNBA. This wasn't about missed calls anymore. This was about civil rights, systemic targeting, and workplace safety. He painted a picture so damning, so urgent, that it felt less like a sports segment and more like a national emergency. You could hear the frustration in Stephen A.'s voice as he unpacked what's happening to Caitlin Clark, the woman who's breaking viewership records, rewriting endorsement history, and turning stadiums into sellouts isn't just being overlooked. She's being hunted. The tone shifted from commentary to a legal thesis, citing evidence, statistics, and historical parallels that left no room for denial. And when a voice as loud and respected as Stephen A. Smith starts mentioning the Justice Department on national television, you know we've reached DEFCON 1. This isn't sports anymore. This is civil rights in a jersey. He warned us this wasn't about jealousy alone. This was about institutional negligence. Smith didn't mince words. He spoke directly to the league, the fans, and yes, the federal government. His call to action was chillingly clear. Investigate before it's too late.
Ms. Clark's targeting may reflect a culture of disparate treatment, and the evidence provides reasonable cause for a federal probe into potential civil rights violations.
And here's the chilling irony. The same league that Caitlin Clark just saved from irrelevance is now under fire for failing to protect her. She isn't just a player. She's the economic lifeblood of the entire WNBA. And yet, she's being allowed to get battered night after night, while executives stay silent. Smith's words hit hard because they reflect the outrage bubbling beneath the surface of every fan who's been watching this unfold in disbelief. Caitlin Clark isn't just having a good season. She's rewriting the rules of what success looks like in women's basketball. In just her first year, she triggered a financial renaissance that most leagues spend decades chasing. We're talking about a 601% explosion in merchandise sales, a 366% jump in league pass subscriptions, and over $11 million in personal endorsements. These aren't stats. These are seismic shifts in the WNBA's financial future, all driven by one player. And yet, despite her unprecedented impact, the league has failed her in the most fundamental way: protecting her body. Every foul that's ignored, every shove that goes uncalled, sends one message loud and clear: your value doesn't guarantee your safety. It's a contradiction so grotesque it borders on criminal negligence. When a billion-dollar brand emerges from one athlete, and that athlete is left to fend for herself, it begs the question: who's really running the league?
Caitlin Clark has done for the women's NBA what Michael Jordan once did for the NBA. Made it more valuable, watchable, and marketable. Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Ms. Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache.
Her presence isn't a fluke. It's the single most profitable thing to ever happen to women's basketball. Sponsors are lining up, broadcasters are expanding coverage, and fans are flocking to arenas in record numbers. And still, we're watching her get targeted on a nightly basis. This isn't just about bad officiating. It's about the league's willful ignorance. The higher she rises, the more brutal the blows become, and nobody with power is stepping in. Clark isn't asking for special treatment. She's asking for basic respect. And the more the WNBA ignores her injuries and abuse, the louder the calls for outside intervention grow. This is no longer about sportsmanship. It's about liability. The numbers are irrefutable, and the silence from WNBA leadership absolutely deafening. Let this sink in. Caitlin Clark took 17% of all flagrant fouls last season. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. One so blatant that even her own teammates, like Sophie Cunningham, are publicly crying foul. This is a statistical equivalent of sounding an alarm. And yet, the league sleeps on. Analyst Rebecca Lobo flat out said it. Every single one of those plays against Caitlin Clark has been a foul. Think about that for a second. When a respected commentator speaks with that kind of conviction, you better believe something's broken. The numbers, the footage, the analysis, they all point to the same ugly truth. Clark isn't just getting fouled, she's getting targeted. And the result? A superstar who should be the WNBA's crown jewel is instead being used as a punching bag. Every ignored whistle is a nail in the coffin of the league's credibility. Because the moment you let a player absorb abuse at twice the league average, you just confess to the world. You can't protect your stars. And if you can't protect your stars, what are you? The data is undeniable. The footage is damning. And the silence from leadership is unacceptable. If this were happening in any other league to any other player with this kind of impact, there'd be a national uproar. Instead, Clark is being left alone in the fire while the WNBA fiddles. Let's talk about the All-Star voting scandal, a case study in jealousy if there ever was one. Caitlin Clark, with her record-breaking 1.29 million fan votes, should have been the centerpiece of the entire event. But when the player ballots came in, she wasn't ranked second or even fifth. She was ninth among guards. Ninth. Are we supposed to believe that's anything other than a hit job? You want to understand the soul of the scandal? Start with the All-Star voting. Because no matter how many times the league tries to spin it, no one forgets what happened. Caitlin Clark made history with 1.29 million fan votes, shattering records, igniting passion, and pulling millions of new viewers into the game. But when the dust settled and the player ballots were revealed, she wasn't celebrated, she was buried. Ninth, she wasn't voted second. Not third, not even fourth. Ninth among guards. That wasn't a snub, it was a calculated hit. Let's be brutally honest, this wasn't just oversight. It was an ambush. The fans had spoken in numbers so loud, they echoed through every front office, broadcast studio, and locker room. And yet, her own peers delivered a gut punch so brazen, it could only have been fueled by resentment. This is where the emotional stakes skyrocket. Because for all her impact, tripling team values, elevating salaries, boosting TV deals, Caitlin Clark expected, at the very least, acknowledgement. Not praise, not worship, just recognition. What she got instead was a message. You don't belong here. And that message wasn't whispered. It was screamed through that player vote. Veteran players who benefit directly from Clark's presence, charter flights, expanded media deals, bigger crowds, turned around and voted her down. It was the ultimate betrayal. Not from rivals, but from teammates in the same league. And fans noticed. Social media exploded with accusations of jealousy and sabotage. Analysts were stunned. Commentators didn't hold back. Even legendary broadcaster Dick Vitale chimed in, absolutely pure jealousy. Imagine being the face of a league's survival, its ratings lifeline, and watching the very athletes who profit from your impact try to erase you. It's Shakespearean. It's Game of Thrones in sneakers. And it's more real than any reality show on TV right now. The visuals say it all. Sold out arenas chanting her name. Jerseys flying off shelves. Highlight reels dominating ESPN. Yet behind the scenes, a war was brewing. One not of basketball, but of identity, control, and power. The player vote wasn't about performance. It was about politics. A clash between the old guard and the new wave. Between those trying to protect their place in the hierarchy and the woman they see as a threat to everything familiar. Caitlin Clark didn't just arrive. She disrupted. And disruption always brings backlash, especially when the disruptor is young, white, marketable, and refuses to dim her own light to make others comfortable. The vote was a warning shot. But what her peers didn't expect was how the public would respond. Because fans, they don't forget. They saw what was happening in plain sight, and they rallied harder. Every boo Clark endured in an away arena became another jersey sold. Every cheap shot turned into another viral highlight viewed by millions. She became untouchable because they tried to bury her. That's the irony. Every attempt to shut her out only made her more powerful. She stopped being just a basketball player. She became a symbol of what happens when success threatens comfort, of what happens when a system built on gatekeeping meets a force of nature with receipts. And this is why the All-Star vote wasn't just a petty slight. It became Exhibit A, the cultural fracture it revealed, massive, unhealable, and now potentially indictable. When Stephen A. Smith looked at those voting results, he didn't see just numbers. He saw the underbelly of the WNBA. He saw a league imploding under its own insecurities. And he said what no executive dared to admit: this isn't sustainable. Because when your fans and your players are on two different planets, something's broken. And when your most valuable star is getting punished instead of protected, that's not just a scandal, it's a liability. This is the moment that made the case for federal scrutiny bulletproof. Workplace retaliation, cultural discrimination, internal sabotage, all evidence in a single vote that said more than 1,000 press releases ever could. And now, the league must answer to fans, to Congress, to history. Because what happened with that all-star vote was more than disrespect. It was a declaration of war. Fans made their voices heard. They didn't just vote, they roared. They rallied behind the player who brought them back to the sport, who gave them a reason to believe again. But when it came time for her peers to acknowledge that impact, they turned their backs. That's not competition. That's sabotage. It's not just insulting. It's coordinated exclusion. You don't get that kind of disparity between public love and private rankings without a motive. And that motive? Jealousy, fear, and a desperate attempt to hold on to old power structures. The WNBA isn't just ignoring its future. It's actively suppressing it. And when you look at how the league has responded, it becomes crystal clear. They're terrified of the truth getting out. Because if the public ever fully grasps the level of internal resistance to Clark's rise, the backlash won't be a protest. It'll be a reckoning. This wasn't just a snub. This was an act of institutional sabotage. The Wall Street Journal didn't just publish an op-ed. They lit the fuse on a national firestorm. The paper accused the WNBA of creating a hostile work environment for Caitlin Clark and laid out legal arguments to prove it. They referenced precedents, cited discrimination frameworks, and called on federal agencies to get involved. This wasn't tabloid fodder. This was a respected institution, sounding the alarm, and what they exposed was chilling. This isn't just about physical fouls. It's about systematic targeting that violates workplace safety laws. The WNBA, they argued, may have created a culture where abuse isn't just tolerated, it's institutionalized. And that means the Justice Department, the Labor Department, and even Congress could be next to step in. Stephen A. Smith didn't just agree, he doubled down. He validated every point the Journal made, and then added fuel to the fire. He reminded everyone that this isn't conspiracy, it's a documented pattern. And once the feds start asking questions, it's game over. Because once subpoenas are issued, emails are examined, and communications are leaked, the whole league gets exposed. And if the WNBA leadership thought they could sweep this under the rug, they're about to learn what real accountability looks like. Senator Jim Banks isn't waiting for the dust to settle. He's demanding action now. He sent a formal letter to the WNBA commissioner asking for answers, timelines, and internal policies about how Clark is being treated. This is no longer a media firestorm. It's a federal inquiry. And what they're asking for is crystal clear: transparency, reform, and justice. When Congress steps into the world of sports, it's never just about the game. It's about legal violations, workplace safety, and whether the league failed its employees. The parallels to the Erica Hammond pregnancy discrimination case are glaring. This is deja vu with a bigger spotlight. And this time, the league might not escape so easily. Banks's letter isn't just about Caitlin Clark. It's about a culture that has rewarded jealousy over merit, silence over accountability, and tribalism over fairness. And now the government wants receipts. They want to know who knew what when they knew it, and what they did or didn't do about it. If you think this won't have consequences, think again. The league's special privileges, its antitrust status, and even its broadcasting deals could all be on the chopping block. This is no longer just a WNBA issue. It's a government issue, and it's only getting started. Let's not pretend this fallout is limited to headlines. If the federal probe finds substantial evidence, sponsors will start pulling out. Networks will begin renegotiating their terms. Corporate America doesn't stick around when workplace discrimination is on the table. It runs. The WNBA could lose everything Clark helped them gain. Nike didn't write Caitlin Clark a record-breaking check, so she could be assaulted every week on national TV. ESPN didn't expand coverage to watch its star get brutalized while officials swallowed their whistles. These companies are watching closely, and they won't hesitate to distance themselves if the league refuses to protect its investment. That's the cold, Hard truth. This is business at its most brutal. The moment Clark's safety becomes a liability, the league's entire financial structure begins to crumble. And all of this could have been avoided if anyone, had just protected the woman who built their empire. But they didn't. And now they're facing the consequences. Clark's teammates know what's happening. They've seen the bruises. They've felt the tension. And now they're stepping up. Indiana isn't just building a team. They're building a wall around their star. Sophie Cunningham didn't join the fever to chase stats. She came to fight. Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston aren't just ballers. They're bodyguards now. The message is loud and clear. Hurt her and you'll answer to all of us. Indiana is done playing nice. The Fever's front office made it clear that 2025 will be different. They've invested too much in Caitlin Clark to let the abuse continue. If the league won't protect her, they will. And if officials won't blow the whistle, they'll make sure opponents think twice before swinging. Because this isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about survival. And when one team steps up to defend their star, it sets the tone for the rest of the league. The message? You either evolve or get run over. Caitlin Clark changed everything. She transformed a stagnant league into a cultural phenomenon. But now, the very system she saved is forcing her into a corner. And if they don't fix it soon, they'll lose the one player they can't afford to lose. Because Caitlin Clark holds all the cards, and she knows it.